Hello, my name is Chuck Roxon, and welcome to this brief talk on a critical issue about dealing with the future. And I call this a walk into the future. I have listened to more than 500 pitches for startups looking for investment, and I'm very concerned about how many of them think about the future and the kinds of problems that they're solving. And one constellation of issues that concerns me most, I call the Theranos Syndrome, after the company that developed blood analyzing equipment that actually did not work as promised. A lot of people lost a lot of money. I want to share with you some of the observations from this particular syndrome. How do you evaluate your walk into the future? What do you need to take into consideration as you move forward? First, a few quick background stories. Flying cars. Uh, when I was younger, there was quite a bit of discussion about the fact that flying cars were right around the corner. You'd have a garage, drive your car out, unfold the wings, it would take off. And first, of course, you had a helicopter propeller to take you up, and then you would fly forward, and it would eliminate any problems with traffic on the expressways as you commuted to work. Needless to say, there were many issues involved with making this idea happen, but I actually had a friend whose grandfather believed that this was right around the corner and therefore spent money making sure that all of his grandchildren had flying lessons so they would be ready for flying cars. The second background story has to do with a seminar I was giving recently, and the question came up of who invented the computer. And the people who were in the class were shocked to discover that an old person, me, had been working on computers since the time I was in high school. And computers have been around for a while. They were even more shocked to find out that during the Second World War, computers were used extensively for many issues, including coordinating gunfire of large capital ships before invasions of Pacific Islands. Many of the people in the seminar were convinced that the computer had been invented either by Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. How quickly do things happen? Well, the phrase going viral is a big deal, but most changes, most bits of evolution that change our technologies don't happen with the flick of a switch. And so this is the third item we'll talk about. What are the foundations of the Theranos effect, which underlies fraud, whether it's purposeful or inadvertent? The first is the notion of magical thinking, which we'll get to. The second is ignorance of what you're talking about or lack of independent validation of what you're talking about. And then, of course, this leads to fraud, purposeful or not. So let's first talk about magical thinking. Psychologists know that young children, particularly, are prone to magical thinking. The world seems very magical to a youngster anyway, which is why they believe in Santa Claus. Magical thinking has several components to it, but the first is if I have an idea, it's a great idea. Well, Most ideas that people have may be interesting, but very few actually make sense or lead anywhere. Uh, One quick example, software that shows you alternatives to get around expressway traffic was supposed to eliminate gridlock on the highways in the morning and the evening. And my last experience in any major metropolitan area shows that gridlock is here. This idea will change everything. Very few ideas actually change everything. The transmission of electricity changed everything, but there are very few inventions of that import. The third item, and I scratch my head because I hear this a lot when I judge business plan competitions, as I did last week, which is what stimulated this video. Who needs proof? This is innovative. This is so innovative that it can't be proved, but it's going to work. Nobody else has an idea like this. This is really going to happen. So these are all examples of magical thinking. Then there's a question of ignorance, and this is a multi-layered issue. First is many people who propose new ideas, new businesses, don't actually understand the underlying science for what they're proposing. They also don't understand the underlying engineering that is necessary to bring the science to execution. Also, they may not have any background in the technology or equipment necessary for the engineering to be executed, and they don't know exactly how difficult it is to transfer technology to the people who have to deploy it. Each of these steps need to be validated and proven, starting with the science. All 6 of the business plans that I evaluated last week had no independent proof or validation that what they were proposing in the healthcare arena can actually be done. All of the members of the business startup teams were in IT and programming, and they had no advice from people in the medical background or healthcare background to know that this actually meant anything scientifically, nor had the engineering been done to validate proof of concept. Certainly, rollout for technology transfer is impossible under these situations. Whenever anybody says to you, let's have a moonshot to solve this kind of cancer, you know it's impossible because the people who say it probably don't understand how many hundreds of years of mathematical development and development in physics led to the actual moonshot. And so there is an ignorance also of time. I have a client right now who has validated the science, has validated the engineering. I could go on, but the execution of the people who actually have to deploy in this aspect of medical science, it's going to take time. And it's taken so far much more time than he ever imagined. It will happen, though. And so we come to fraud, finally, advertent or inadvertent. It comes from ignoring data and computations. Is the idea valid? Is the science proven? Has it been independently validated by other researchers? If you ignore data and ignore computations, you're going to be in trouble. It's not going to happen. Making a promise you know you cannot keep is an ethical but may not be a legal definition of fraud. Don't do it. Purposefully misrepresenting proof or lack of proof is certainly something you should avoid at all costs. You want to get money for your idea, but make sure that you underpromise and are absolutely on the money in terms of data. And don't ignore the potential harm of your actions. And being honest is right there. Instead of making a promise you know you cannot keep, you can say, this isn't proven yet. We're asking for money for proof of concept. That way you avoid misrepresenting what you're offering. And sticking with the data and computations is essential. As I used to say when I was doing presentations on quality control, in God we trust, all others bring data. And I hope you'll remember that. Summary and conclusion: don't do these things. Keep it honest. Keep it clean. Be careful. And the long term may be the safest way to go. Protect your ideas, of course, with intellectual property, but you can't protect something that can't be validated. So knowing when to protect is another issue. Don't jump the gun. Don't do it. Thank you so much. Best of luck to all of you. Shit.